This weekend, two of the biggest wrestling companies in the world each held a major pay-per-view one night apart. On Saturday, it was Night of Champions in Riyadh. Sunday, Forbidden Door in San Jose. Both shows ended with a beloved professional wrestler finally getting the moment their fans had been waiting for. Saturday night, it was Sami Zayn. Sunday night, it was Will Ospreay. Both were incredible. Both were emotional, and watching them in the same weekend, I couldn't stop thinking about how completely different the paths to each one felt. That's what this video is about. Let me put them side by side. Sami Zayn, 10 years in the WWE, 10 previous attempts at the World Championship. He has been so close so many times that watching him almost win had become a recurring event. And at Night of Champions, in a triple threat against Cody Rhodes and Gunther, he countered across Rhodes into a roll-up. The referee counted 3. Sami Zayn is the undisputed WWE champion. As a Muslim, seeing Sami Zayn celebrate that championship in front of that crowd carried a little extra weight for me. The moment transcends the show around it. This goes alongside Bryan Danielson at WrestleMania 30, Kofi Kingston winning the title, moments that feel less like a booking and more like the right thing finally happening. Will Ospreay at last year's Forbidden Door, the Death Riders attacked him and put him out with a neck injury that needed surgery. He was gone for months. He came back at Revolution and spent the following months training with the exact group that hurt him, insisting the whole time that it hadn't changed who he was. And at Forbidden Door 2026, in a 35-minute war against Swerve Strickland, where both men were covered in each other's blood, he finished the match with Jon Moxley's own moves. The paradigm shift, the Death Rider, the finishing sequence of the man who had ended his year. The Death Riders lifted him onto their shoulders. His wife came into the ring. He looked out at the crowd and said, "See you at Wembley." That is a man completing a journey, not just winning a match. Both moments landed, and I don't know, watching them back to back, something about the difference between them kept nagging at me. So what was it? Here's what I noticed. With Sami Zayn, the moment arrived in spite of everything around it. Night of Champions has its own vibe. The Saudi shows always do. Bigger entrances, more spectacle, more everything around the wrestling. And honestly, a lot of people love that scale. I get it. But for me, watching Night of Champions is constantly navigating around things to get to the wrestling. Commercial breaks after every match. A Pitbull song is the official anthem. An ESPN crossover prompt after the first hour of the show. Some of those entrances ran longer than the matches themselves. I wrote this in my notes. This feels less like a wrestling event and more like a capitalist version of wrestling. When the wrestling finally broke through, and it did, it was excellent. Seth Rollins versus Braun Breaker in the steel cage was the best match of their trilogy. Blood, big spots, a finish that landed exactly right. The triple threat in the main event was great. Sami's win was earned over 18 minutes of 3 of the WWE's best giving it their all. The wrestling is not the problem. With Forbidden Door, you never needed to fight through anything. One match ended and the next one started. No ads on the pay-per-view. Moxley versus Bandito began and they just went. Swerve versus Ospreay got 35 minutes and every second felt like the show was built entirely around 2 men finishing what they started. AEW just gets out of the way. That difference, the production built around the wrestling versus wrestling built inside the production, is what I kept feeling all weekend. Both shows had tournament finals this weekend. This is the most direct comparison that you can make. Night of Champions crowned a king and queen of the ring. Oba Femi beat Jey Uso on the men's side. Io Sky beat Liv Morgan on the women's side. 2 things I noticed. Oba Femi is being booked as someone who simply wins everything he enters. He is genuinely impressive. The presence, the physicality, the ceiling is real. But when someone wins every single competition back to back, individual victories start feeling less meaningful. It stops feeling like a story and starts feeling like a predetermined checklist. And that is my biggest gripe with the King of the Ring. They had Oba Femi win because they couldn't have him lose to anyone. But then they didn't give him the world title shot against Roman Reigns. That went to Seth Rollins. Instead, Oba is now challenging Brock Lesnar in a Hell in a Cell match, which, great, that's at the end of their trilogy. I'm all in for it. but why not make Seth win the King of the Ring tournament if you're gonna have him go up against Roman for the world title at SummerSlam? That is just something that doesn't make sense to me. The women's side is something else entirely. The Queen of the Ring is a tournament where the winner earns a world title shot at the world champion. Liv Morgan is the women's world champion, and Liv Morgan not only competed in the Queen of the Ring, but she went all the way to the final. The women's world champion entered a tournament to earn a title shot at herself. Io Sky won and immediately challenged Liv for the belt at SummerSlam, which doesn't excite me as much for their match at SummerSlam, even though their match at Night of Champions was great, and that match will probably be great as well. But when we've just seen that match, and now you're announcing it for SummerSlam as essentially a rematch, there's less excitement for it. Now compare that to the Owen Hart Cup. Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland in the men's final, a rematch from Forbidden Door 2024, building on a year of shared history that the audience had lived through. A winner who heads to Wembley to challenge for the AEW World Championship in his home crowd. You could feel the destination from the first match of the tournament. Heck, you could feel it from the time Ospreay returned at Revolution. The whole thing was building somewhere specific. Mercedes Moné winning on the women's side. Clear story, clear stakes, clear path to All In. One tournament felt like infrastructure, the other felt like storytelling. Night of Champions feels like wrestling built inside a promotion. Forbidden Door feels like a wrestling show that occasionally remembers that it's a television product. It's not about the talent. WWE has some of the best wrestlers alive. Night of Champions proved that. Seth Rollins in a steel cage is exactly what professional wrestling is supposed to be. Sami Zayn winning the world title is one of the great WWE moments of recent years. But at Night of Champions, I had to find the wrestling. It was there, it was good, I just had to wait for it. At Forbidden Door, it was already happening. This weekend gave us two unforgettable moments. Sami Zayn finally became WWE Champion. Will Ospreay finally reached Wembley. But one company made me feel like I was watching a television product that happened to include wrestling. The other one made me feel like I was watching wrestling. That's the one that felt closer to wrestling this weekend. Drop your takes in the comments. I want to hear both sides on this one. And that's gonna be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys can follow me on Instagram at Nightwake by T if you guys want to connect with me on a more personal level. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.